Good morning. Pearl Harbor Day is tomorrow, and since our dad was in that battle, and it's relevant for what we're doing here, let's take a few moments out and mention a few things. Our dad was in the Battle of Pearl Harbor. Our mom was on the other side of town, she would say, in London during World War II. Let's start on that side of things. A few decades back, I was in the Airplane Museum here in Tucson. There's a huge hangar, and there's an American bomber from the European side of things. And on the display, it was talking about how we bombed the Nazis and won the war. And there were two gentlemen, they seemed to be in their 30s, and one looked up and commented on the other with a smile on his face and a heavy German accent, "We must pay for the sins of our fathers." Hold on, no, that's not correct. Hopefully you wouldn't follow in the footsteps of your fathers. You don't pay for the sins of your fathers. That's over with. If you want to do something good in the world, and I certainly hope you do if you're listening to this and you're in Germany, come up with a way of keeping scoundrels from rising to the top of society. Look how many times that sort of thing has happened since then. On the Japanese side of things, going back a few years, either on television or on the computer, there was a gal, and she was an older gal, and she was talking about how, as a Japanese schoolgirl, when they heard about the Battle of Pearl Harbor, they let everybody out of school and they were singing and dancing. Japan is going to rule the world. They're going to be the chosen race, she said. She mentioned a few other things, and then she said, "We must forgive America for dropping the atomic bomb." Hold on a second. I think there's a little different way of thinking. I'm not quite sure that one's correct. Let's add one more thing. There's a Catholic priest on the YouTube. He's breaking in his habit. And he was talking away, nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. He was talking about the justification of war and that sort of thing. And he had mentioned that it was unethical, including the United States, for us to drop the bomb on women and children. We shouldn't have done that, he said. Now, hold on again. Keeping in mind that this is a persuasive speech, and our whole society is in essence a Catholic society. Being a normal, well-adjusted person, a normal supply and demand curve is a God and country thing. We certainly don't want to tell the good priest his job or what to do, but there's something wrong with all of this. So let's stop and collect a few notes. We'll just collect some notes. Here's one of them. It was the United States and England, mostly England, that went over to Japan and taught them how to build factories and how to industrialize. That's how come their ships look so much like the British. They are British, or British designs. And they promptly turned around, declared themselves a chosen race, and became this ruthless culture. And it started attacking everybody. They all do that. It's just part of Mother Nature. Let's collect another note. They said, if I remember the numbers right, there would be about 100,000 casualties if the United States had tried to invade Japan. They had armed everybody, including the women and children, and there was just going to be this ruthless, bloodthirsty battle. Perhaps you could pretend you're a general and try and explain to someone who was from Boise, Idaho, that he was a 20-year-old apprentice cook one day, and now he's a rifleman on the other side of the world, and you'll probably die. We could go over with an airplane and drop a bomb and stop the war, but we decided that was too ruthless, so you're going to have to die. I'm not quite sure that's what the Pope meant. As a counterexample, look at Putin today. He decided to, among other things, invade Ukraine. Ukraine just happens to be the country that provides so much of the food for the entire region, and with Ukraine, he can control so much of the world's oil and so much of the world's food. Remember, Putin is a communist. He's a communist country, and they're the literal opposite of the Catholic Church. They go with Mother Nature. And that's what he did. He simply invaded Ukraine, and the first thing he did was go around and start shooting the women and children. I have a feeling that's far along the lines of what the Pope meant when he came out with those encyclicals. Either way, when Putin is bombing women and children in the Ukraine, has nothing to do with bombing the United States, bombing Japan. In fact, if I remember right, the United States government really had a discussion about that. It really got to them. They're the ones that had a sense of caring. Neither Japan or communism or any of those other countries don't. Let's keep this up. The United States could have used nuclear arms in Korea, and they didn't. And one of the reasons was they were so afraid of what would happen to the civilian population. And the same with Vietnam. They could have won the war very easily, but didn't. And again, they lost. They could have used nuclear arms against China and Russia, and they would have defeated them in a matter of months. And they chose not to. Now, look at how violent everything is today. Let's keep this up and play another game. It's the 1950s, and we had the atomic bomb, and nobody else did. And supposing we laid down the law and said that anybody who so much as dares build up a military, and anybody who tries to get a nuclear arms, well, they'll have their capital blown up, their city blown up. And you would have had to have done that sort of thing. And once more, they would have had to have joined our gang. Race relegated to an endearing quality of your parents. Home economics. We have lots of anecdotes about home economics. Look at how the world would look today. There would be incredible peace. There would be this huge middle class. People would have been breeding a breed of normal, well-adjusted people. Gals in China wouldn't be working in factories. They would be at the shopping mall learning Chinese Valley Girl talk. And the world would have pretty much started to be built in Disneyland. We would have had lots of good things happen. But it's a very violent thing. It goes against Mother Nature. It goes against human nature. It goes against the satanic. And yes, you would have had to have, it would have looked horrible blowing up somebody's city. But very good things would have happened then. Now, let's go back to today. That young priest we were talking about is a university professor. He's teaching students. And perhaps we can talk about those students now. The whole world is going to fall into your lap one day after you graduate. You're the young and big and strong. And it isn't being decent to go over and let the bad guys win. It's being decent to stand up to them. Now you're going to have to face incredible violence, and you're going to have to face incredible violence under an argument of decency. And quite frankly, if you win, good things are going to happen to all of us, and if you lose, not very good things are going to happen to any of us. One thing's for sure, you're one of the last groups in this country, certainly at the university, that would feel bad, that has a sense of empathy and caring. And that's something you have to learn. Perhaps one of the other priests, that Father Altar Boy, that's close enough to get his name, don't want to say his name. He sounded like a breath of fresh air. He's saying the same thing that our other priest we're picking on does. He just says it in a different way. It's like opening up a window and letting fresh air in. Look, he says, we had gotten it right. You screwed up. Don't whine. Say you're sorry. Go get those bums out of there and let's go. And that's the sort of thing we need to hear. There's another part to this anecdote, and if you're a young man, well, we get to sneak in just what our dad did at Pearl Harbor. I think you would enjoy it. You would put a smile on your face, and it's something you can use. We'll see you on the flip side of this anecdote.